imagine believing with like absolute terrifying certainty that your coworkers are launching this highly coordinated, covert, multi-person conspiracy on national television to expose, wait for it, your toes.
I mean, not your finances,
Yeah.
not your failing marriage, the literal phalanges on your feet.
Like the toes. Welcome back to the reality television circus, babes, where the paranoia is completely clinical, the financial literacy is just non-existent, and the shade is absolutely lethal. Babes, welcome back. And of course, good morning, good evening, good night.
Good morning, good evening, good night, babes. Honestly, the level of delusion we are dealing with today requires a medical degree and, frankly, a very stiff drink to even begin to unpack yet.
Absolutely a stiff drink. And speaking of a stiff drink, babes, the pink peach sangria is officially back on deck today.
Thank God.
Right. Because honestly, nothing screams Southern Belle Summer quite like rosé and, throwing some peaches in a glass. Cheers, babes.
Cheers to the Snark Squad. Let's be analytically honest for a second about this specific drink. Why is it that the exact moment you drop a sliced peach into a glass of objectively cheap wine, you automatically feel like you come from, generational old money?
It's so true.
It is a fascinating sociological phenomenon. I mean, you were drinking a $12 bottle of rosé from the grocery store, but the peach floating in it somehow acts as this massive class signifier.
It is an instant psychological shift. Like, I took one sip of this, and suddenly I'm actively planning a vineyard vacation. I am literally scrolling Zillow right now, looking at listings for these sprawling Georgia estates with wraparound porches and weeping willows that I absolutely, unequivocally cannot afford.
You're practically drawing up the blueprints.
I am. I am imagining myself in, like, a full silk robe, holding a heavy crystal glass, staring out at my acreage and just severely judging the groundskeeper.
It is pure delusion, and I love it. It is the peach sangria delusion. You drink a regular glass of wine, and you're just a normal person unwinding after a long day at the clinic.
Yeah.
You add a peach, and suddenly your entire personality is like linen pants, complaining about the humidity, and judging your neighbor's landscaping choices.
Yes, the landscaping.
It's the easiest way to access the housewife's lifestyle without actually having to endure a horrific divorce or, a federal tax lien.
Exactly. It just makes us feel like housewives. One sip and I'm ready to throw a themed charity event just to dramatically uninvite someone at the front door. Like, I want to hire a string quartet just so I can yell over them.
The aesthetic of shouting over violins is very chic.
It is very chic. But speaking of judging people, babes, we've been so busy lately that we accidentally neglected one of our absolute favorite hobbies.
Oh, no, don't even.
Visiting Joan and Felicia, the undisputed OG Snark queens.
I am still physically recovering from that.
Babes, we finally went to the retirement home this afternoon. We picked them up, and we took them for a nice, supposedly peaceful walk downtown. And babes, they absolutely could not behave. I am still recovering from the sheer volume of unsolicited opinions that came out of those women.
To call it a peaceful walk is the understatement of this century. They were an absolute menace to society. I mean, the second we got them through the automatic sliding doors of the facility, the social filter completely dissolved.
Totally gone.
They started loudly gossiping about the retirement home drama. And let me tell you, the stakes in that place are incredibly high. Apparently, someone named Brenda has been monopolizing the good ergonomic bingo daubers, and Joan is ready to escalate this to physical violence.
Joan was pacing the sidewalk. She was aggressively adjusting her cardigan, pointing her finger, saying, Brenda doesn't even have the hand-eye coordination for 4 cards. Why does she need the purple dauber?
It's a valid analytical question, honestly.
And Felicia, oh my gosh, Felicia was critiquing strangers' outfits on the street like she was sitting front row at New York Fashion Week. Like, a woman walked past us in a perfectly fine, matched athleisure set. She was clearly just going to the grocery store or something.
Right, minding her own business.
Minding her business. And Felicia audibly gasps, clutches her pearls, and says out loud, does she know we can all see her giving up?
The complete and utter erosion of their social contract is fascinating to watch. Sociologically speaking, when you reach a certain age and you leave the workforce, all the societal pressures that force you to be polite just vanish. They have absolutely nothing to lose.
Nothing.
And their inability to mind their business only escalated when we stopped at that local bakery. Joan just stood at the pastry case, not ordering anything, just actively judging everyone's carbohydrate choices.
It was horrifying and hilarious. Like, this man in a nice suit ordered a bran muffin and a black coffee, and Joan looked him dead in the eye, looked him up and down, and said, rough weekend, huh? Having trouble moving things along.
I wanted to die.
The man looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. He just grabbed his muffin and ran.
And you are the worst enabler.
I am not.
You are. You are standing there, buying them whatever pastries they demand, completely validating their shade. You act like the reality TV producer, just winding them up and letting them loose on the civilian population.
Okay, I mean, I completely encourage their nonsense. I'm not going to lie to the Snark squad. They are acting like retired housewives, and I am fully living for the drama. I bought Joan a cheese Danish just to keep her talking.
And I'm standing there trying to maintain some semblance of decorum, right? I'm pretending to be the voice of reason. I'm whispering, like, Joan, lower your voice, Felicia. That's not nice.
Yeah.
While secretly archiving every single shady comment in my brain because it's pure comedic gold. They are the reigning queens of chaos, and we are just lucky to be in their orbit.
We really are. Unfortunately, babes, the delusion has to pause for a second. The peach sangria will eventually run dry, and the awful reality of adulthood is looming. Because tomorrow is Monday.
Ugh, do not say that word.
I know. Which means returning to our respective dental practices.
I am already calculating exactly how many hours it is until Friday at 5 p.m. Like, mathematically, I am already checked out.
Okay, but let's look at the highs. We have to find the silver lining here. We get, like, fresh week energy, right? We get to see our favorite co-workers and the gossip in the sterilization room. We get to have those good little desk lunches we meal prepped on Sunday. Like, we are surviving another week.
I'm optimistic. I mean, I am a little nervous about my schedule, but I am choosing optimism.
Your optimism is charming, but my analytical brain is already fixating on the lows. The Monday morning alarms that literally jolt you out of REM sleep. The endless, yawning void of emails waiting in the inbox.
The emails are violent.
And the possessed dental technology. Let's talk about this erect machine for a second. It only ever decides to recalibrate or completely break down when you have a back-to-back, fully booked schedule of deeply impatient people. The accuracy of the possessed technology, it knows when you are stressed. It literally senses human fear. Like, you have the patient sitting there, numb, drooling, right? And the machine is just spinning, flashing that little blue light, basically laughing at me.
It absolutely senses fear. And let's not forget the patients who show up 25 minutes late for a 30-minute appointment, holding a massive iced coffee from Starbucks, and casually say, oh my gosh, traffic was just so crazy. Meanwhile, my entire afternoon schedule is now a cascading disaster of delays.
Oh, it hurts because it is so true. The absolute audacity of the iced coffee when you were late to a medical appointment is like I can see the condensation on the cup, Susan. I know you stopped.
The ice is still fully formed. You didn't hit traffic, you hit the drive-thru.
Exactly. Okay, Dabes, enough spiraling about our actual jobs. Let's spiral about someone else's job because we need to talk about Atlanta. Season 17, episode 9, picking up the peaches.
We are picking up the peaches, the pieces, and the shattered remnants of whatever dignity was left on the floor at Phaedra's Healing Waters sound bath. This episode was a masterclass in psychological projection and, frankly, financial mismanagement.
Let's just jump right into the sound bath fallout and Kelly's completely misplaced priorities, because we pick up exactly where the chaos left off last week. Kelly shows up at Phaedra's house to apologize for the explosive, completely unhinged fight she had with Porsha right in the middle of the meditation mats.
And Phaedra, in her signature form, graciously accepts the apology to Kelly's face, while simultaneously delivering a completely lethal, premeditated red in her confessional. Let's talk about the sweet chariots.
I gasped. I physically clutched my imaginary pearls on the couch. Phaedra is recounting Kelly showing up in her house, completely distraught, chest-heaving, crying, and Phaedra points out that Kelly, in her haste and distress, is not wearing a bra.
Right.
So Phaedra looks at the camera, deadpan, and compares Kelly's anatomy to sweet chariots that swing low.
It was devastating. It was poetic, it was biblical, and it was entirely unnecessary, which is exactly what makes it quintessential housewife shade.
So unnecessary.
But if we peel back the comedy of the swinging chariots, what's actually fascinating here is Kelly's justification for her absolute blow-up at the sound bath. She sits down on Phaedra's couch and starts listing her excuses for losing her mind on Porsha.
And her excuses are really heavy. Like, she's dealing with massive financial stress. Her restaurant, which was supposed to be her primary source of income, is closing. And the kicker, the thing that really broke my heart for a second, is her ex-husband. She says he is actively blocking her kids from filming the show.
Right. And from a psychological standpoint, this is a classic tactic of post-separation abuse.
Yeah.
It is tactical. It's not logical. Her ex-husband isn't protecting the children from the cameras. He is weaponizing his legal rights as a father to mess with her income and her reality TV career. He knows this shows her paycheck, and he is trying to cut her off at the knees. So as an audience member, you are primed to feel deep empathy for Kelly in that moment. You understand why her nervous system is completely fried.
Exactly. Hearing that her daughters feel stung by not being able to participate in this huge, glamorous part of their mom's life, that's a real tangible pain. I was sitting there sipping my sangria, feeling genuine pity for her. I was rooting for her to pull through. But then the very next scene happens, and that empathy is completely obliterated by her own delusional choices.
The whiplash was violent. We go directly from tears about impending bankruptcy to the debut of the $70,000 smile.
Babes, she is crying to Phaedra about financial ruin, about the restaurant closing, about the devastating cost of her divorce, and then cut to the dental office where she is debuting a $70,000 cosmetic veneer procedure.
Paid for entirely by her new man, Jarvis, whom, let's not forget, Shemaya introduced her to. Shemaya literally shows up to the dental office in matching skin-tight aloe workout gear just to chauffeur Kelly home and admire the new teeth.
I am spiraling over the absolute delusion of this. As a dentist, I can appreciate a good set of veneers, right? Like the margins look great. But as a human being with a basic understanding of economics,
Yeah.
what are you doing? You are talking about filing for bankruptcy, you can't pay the rent on your business, and you let a man buy you teeth you do not need.
Let's break this down, because Kelly is fundamentally misunderstanding what a flex is in this day and age.
Yes.
If you are facing bankruptcy and your ex is withholding child support and your primary business venture is failing, accepting 70 grand in cosmetic dentistry instead of asking for business capital or rent money is the financial equivalent of putting a Gucci steering wheel on a car with no engine.
Oh my gosh.
It looks wildly expensive from the outside, but you are still broken down on the side of the road with no way to move forward.
A Gucci steering wheel on a car with no engine. That is the perfect analogy. Why didn't she sit Jarvis down and ask for a small business loan? Why not ask him to cover 3 months of the commercial lease on the Sandy Springs restaurant location so she can keep her staff employed and get her cash flow back on track? Instead, he is buying her teeth, and later in the episode, a massive diamond necklace with her kids' pictures inside the pendant.
Well, let's challenge that. Why do you think he bought the teeth instead of saving the business?
Because it's flashy. Because it looks good on camera. Maybe he thinks he's investing in her brand, like Kelly's face is her brand on reality TV, so he thinks he's helping her career.
That is a very generous interpretation, but let's look at the darker reality of these transactional relationships.
Okay, lay it on me.
Jarvis understands investment, but he isn't investing in Kelly's long-term autonomy or financial stability. He is investing in his plaything. He is love-bombing her. Buying her business would make her independent.
Oh.
Right. Buying her a $70,000 smile is a flashy, highly visible Band-Aid over a massive financial hemorrhage, and it keeps her dependent on him for the actual necessities of life. It's a classic control tactic dressed up as luxury.
Wow, when you put it like that, it is actually terrifying. He gets the credit for being this generous savior on national television, but she is still secretly drowning in debt. And Kelly and Shemaya are sitting in that dental office acting like this is the ultimate prize. They are cheering. It's not a flex. It's a glaring, terrifying lack of financial literacy.
It is the sunk cost fallacy applied to a lifestyle. Kelly has already lost so much in the divorce, she feels she has to maintain the aesthetic of wealth, even if it destroys her actual net worth. But speaking of the terrifying hidden costs of a luxury lifestyle, this transitions perfectly to Shemaya's storyline, because Shemaya is paying a completely different, much darker price for her peach this season.
Yeah, this segment was surprisingly heavy and honestly so necessary to ground the show. Shemaya goes to visit her parents and her sister Tana at their house, and the conversation quickly turns to her surrogacy journey.
It did, and it completely recontextualizes Shemaya's behavior for the rest of the season.
I got so emotional watching the scene. You can literally see the terror in Shemaya's eyes. She already has a child with special needs and severe medical issues. The physical toll of the hormones, the mental toll of these repeated, failed embryo transfers, it is visibly breaking her down.
Yes, no long.
She is sitting in her parents' living room crying, saying she doesn't know if she has the emotional fortitude to do this again, especially knowing the genetic risks involved.
And this raises a deeply uncomfortable question about the analytical reality of her marriage to Gerald. We're watching, in high definition, the absolute highest price of being a kept woman. Gerald is a very traditional man. He wants a male heir to carry on his name and his legacy. And Shemaya, who gave up a very lucrative independent acting career to embrace this incredibly luxurious, fully funded lifestyle, is bearing the entire physical, biological, and emotional cost to keep him happy.
Which brings me to the ultimate question, babes. At what point does the luxury lifestyle, the private chefs, the nannies, the limitless black cards, the matching aloe sets, stop being worth the total surrender of your bodily autonomy and your peace of mind?
It is the ultimate set of golden handcuffs.
Think of it like corporate equity vesting.
Wait, explain the corporate equity thing.
Okay, so Shemaya loves Gerald, yes. But because he provides this stratospheric standard of living, there is a massive unspoken power imbalance. She is essentially an employee in her own marriage who hasn't fully vested. She constantly has to prove why she is worth the spoils.
It is so dark. It is. So Gerald's desire for a son overrides her very valid, medically backed fears about having another child with special needs. He isn't putting a gun to her head, but the implication is clear. Do this to make me happy, or the terms of our arrangement might change. And Shemaya just have to adjust. She pays the physical tax of the surrogacy to maintain her unvested lifestyle shares.
That corporate equity analogy is brilliant, and it is just so depressing. And the worst part is she can't even have this conversation with her own husband. She's having it with her parents. She's having it on camera to millions of viewers. But she is absolutely terrified to sit Gerald down at their dining room table and say, I am breaking under this pressure. I cannot give you a son. It is a crushing weight to carry.
It really is. And human psychology dictates that when you are carrying that much repressed anxiety and fear in your primary relationship, it has to leak out somewhere.
Exactly.
This deeply suppressed trauma adds a whole new layer of context to why Shemaya is moving like a heat-seeking missile toward the other women later in the episode. Misdirected anger is a powerful, dangerous thing.
It makes total sense. Like, she can't yell at Gerald, so she's going to yell at the rest of the cast. But before we get to that explosion, let's lighten the mood for a second. We get a scene at a photo shoot for Pinky's daughter, and it was actually, like, wholesome.
It was a much-needed palate cleanser. Cynthia Bailey shows up, steps right back into her Bailey agency, high-fashion supermodel element, and starts directing the kids' poses. Give me this, give me face, point the toe, lengthen the neck.
Yeah.
It was a reminder of why Cynthia is a literal legend.
She was completely in her bag. She was born to do that. And Angela was there with her youngest daughter, too. It was a really sweet maternal moment, but this is Housewives, so obviously it served a strategic purpose. We see Pinky and Angela sit down in the corner of the studio to actually call a truce.
A surprisingly mature truce, I might add. Though what I truly appreciated was that Pinky, even while extending the olive branch, accurately and surgically calls Angela out for her behavior.
Oh, she read her.
She did. She tells her, I like you, but you are a covert instigator. You start things, you drop a match, and then you hide your hands and watch the house burn down.
Yes. And Cynthia, who historically cannot stand Pinky, is just sitting there on a velvet stool, sipping her drink, silently nodding and agreeing with the shade, like the alliance shift is real. But this photo shoot leads to the major setup of the episode. Cynthia and Pinky decide they are going to take on the Herculean task of bridging the gap between Porsha and K. Michelle. They are going to mediate a sit-down and heal the fractured group.
Which brings us to the absolute, undeniable peak of the episode, the descent into madness. K. Michelle's delusional paranoia.
The sit-down. Babes, Porsha, and K. Michelle meet up at a very chic restaurant with Cynthia and Pinky acting as the UN peacekeepers. They start off so well. They are doing the standard housewives pleasantries. Oh, you look so pretty. No, your hair looks pretty. I love that color on you. And then the comedic timing of the universe activates. A literal apocalyptic thunderstorm starts raging outside the floor-to-ceiling windows the exact second they sit down.
It was a cinematic omen. The sky literally opened up, lightning flashed, and the universe said, this peace treaty is built on a foundation of lies.
It was so dramatic. So Pinky and Cynthia, doing their job, excused themselves to the bar to let the two titans talk. And K. Michelle actually starts off incredibly reasonable. She apologizes for not going directly to Porsha about the rumors swirling that Porsha was plotting against her behind the scenes.
Right. And Porsha, who is operating on a totally different level of reality TV strategy, rightfully points out the mechanics of the game. Porsha says, look, my issue with Kelly at the sound bath had absolutely nothing to do with you. I was getting my lick back at Kelly because Kelly came on the show in her first season alleging that I slept with a married man, so I exposed her alleged married pastor in retaliation. It was simple, transactional tit for tat.
Porsha literally looked at K. Michelle and said, you are going to see a lot worse than that on the show. This is minor league stuff. And K. Michelle seems to accept this. They count it out. They agree to a temporary friend contract for the next 48 hours to see how it goes. But then the spiral begins.
Cynthia and Pinky come back to the table from the bar, and they ask the fatal question. They ask if K. Michelle and Porsha got to the bottom of the quote-unquote plot against K. Michelle. And K. Michelle completely, wildly pivots. She clears Phaedra of all charges, she clears Porsha, and she locks her crosshairs entirely and inexplicably onto Drew.
And babes, the plot. The grand mastermind conspiracy that K. Michelle genuinely believes Drew is orchestrating in the shadows is that Drew is allegedly trying to expose K. Michelle's long toes.
I had to rewind the footage. I thought the edible had kicked in early and I was having an auditory hallucination.
It was unhinged.
A producer literally has to intervene from behind the fourth wall. You hear the producer ask her off camera in a completely bewildered tone, "Wait, what about your feet?" And K. Michelle looks dead into the lens and says, "Yes, the plot was to say I have long toes, but I do have long toes. I am proud of my toes."
I am screaming. I was pacing my living room. Someone is plotting against you because your toes are long? Like, what does that even mean? Are they sneaking into her closet to measure her sandals? She's just making this up on the fly. Her brain is just generating mad libs of paranoia. Every single time she comes back on camera this season, she adds a new, completely unhinged layer to this invisible conspiracy. First, she claimed the plot involved a scented candle. Then it was some random guy named Black sliding into her DMs. And now the climax of the conspiracy is her toe length.
Let's analytically dissect this delusion because it is fascinating. K. Michelle is not a rookie. She has been on reality TV for 15 years across multiple networks. She was the star of Love and Hip Hop. She had her own spin-offs. She knows how production works. So acting shocked and traumatized by introductory low-stakes housewives drama is absurd. It is giving Kelly Benjamin running in traffic crying about jelly beans levels of cognitive dissonance.
Exactly. Scary Island vibes. But I honestly have to ask you, is she actually delusional or is this a defense mechanism? Is K. Michelle just deeply, profoundly intimidated by the veteran housewives like Porsha and Phaedra? Like, she knows she can't beat them at their own game, so she is taking all her anxiety and projecting it onto Drew because Drew is the easiest target in the room.
That is exactly what is happening. It's a massive inferiority complex manifesting as micro-paranoia.
Yeah.
She can't go toe-to-toe with Porsha, pun fully intended, because Porsha is an absolute powerhouse and a veteran of this specific franchise. Porsha will verbally decimate her.
Oh, she would ruin her.
So K. Michelle's brain redirects all this manufactured anxiety onto Drew, who's notoriously messy and easy to fluster. It is fascinating psychological deflection. She invents a bizarre, low-stakes conspiracy about toes so she can play the victim without actually challenging the apex predators of the cast.
That makes so much sense. She wants the screen time of a feud, but she doesn't want the actual smoke from Porsha.
Well, she picked the right target because Drew has absolutely no control over her own life right now, let alone a grand conspiracy. Which brings us to Drew's entourage from hell. This scene should be submitted to the Emmy committee for outstanding achievement in workplace absurdity. It was a masterclass in how not to run a business.
Drew has called a serious team meeting. She brings in her new manager, Keon, to discipline her staff and get everyone on the same page. And babes, she rents out a conference room, and she has a 20-person entourage sitting there. Hairstylists, makeup artists, wardrobe assistants, drivers, social media managers.
Let's do the actual legal math here because the divorce courts already did it for us. It is a matter of public record that Drew is pulling in roughly $12,000 a month right now. She is actively fighting Ralph in a brutal divorce where he is pulling in $71,000 a month.
The disparity is wild.
How on earth, on God's green earth, is she making payroll for 20 people on a $12,000 monthly budget?
She isn't. They're working for exposure, and that's exactly why they are acting a fool. You get what you pay for. This meeting implodes in spectacular, immediate fashion. It is completely unprofessional.
The makeup artist, Freedom, looks across the conference table at the assistant, Danny, and calls him a stuffed Oreo. On national television, in front of their boss.
A stuffed Oreo. And the assistant, Danny, does not even flinch. He claps back, completely unbothered, and tells Drew right to her face that her lead hairstylist, Walter, constantly leaves her wigs lifted and with crunchy lace.
Crunchy lace. I was on the floor in tears. The assistant literally said, "I am a professional. I don't say nothing when her wigs be lifted in the back. I don't say nothing when the lace is crunchy in the front."
I couldn't breathe.
And Drew is just sitting at the head of the table, completely powerless, crying tears of frustration, while her unpaid employees verbally tear each other apart for camera time.
I was spiraling. As a business owner, watching her sit there and cry while her staff openly insults her hairline is a literal nightmare. Drew cannot control her own payroll, she cannot control her divorce, and she certainly cannot control a room full of thirsty creatives.
What's sociologically fascinating here is the evolution of the Bravo Glam Squad. These people are clearly auditioning for their own Bravo spinoff.
Yeah, 100%.
They weren't thinking about preserving their jobs with Drew. They were thinking about producing a viral moment for Twitter. They realized Drew is a sinking ship, so they're using her screen time as a lifeboat for their own careers. They carried the comedy of the entire episode. Honestly, if Drew and the Crunchy Lace Gang becomes a show, I will absolutely be tuning in every week.
It was pure chaos. I would watch Danny critique wigs all day. But babes, the chaos was just getting started. The appetizer has been served, but the main course was radioactive.
Because we have arrived at the dinner of doom, Shemaya versus Angela.
Grab your oxygen masks, secure your personal belongings, because the air gets very thin very quickly in this scene. Angela invites Shemaya to a very upscale dinner to ostensibly clear the air. And Shemaya comes in so incredibly hot. Before she even sits down at the table, before she even takes her coat off, she looks at the hostess at the front stand and says loudly, "I'm looking for a tall lady with a size 12 shoe."
Calling Angela Sasquatch right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Which, analytically speaking, is such a fundamentally weak, uninspired read.
So lame.
When you have to rely on base body shaming and height to insult a woman, you have already lost the intellectual high ground. Angela's a very tall woman. Of course she has larger feet. It's basic biology and physics, not a read. It just shows Shemaya didn't have any actual ammunition.
Exactly. It was giving middle school bully. Shemaya finally sits down, and within 5 minutes, the table is a blazing inferno. Shemaya immediately accuses Angela of picking on her. She points her finger and says, "You claim to have the spiritual gift of discernment. Well, you need to use your discernment to sell some real estate houses instead of worrying about me."
And we have to talk about the phonetics of that moment.
Yeah.
She aggressively mispronounced discernment with a hard Z. Discernment! It made my skin crawl.
So bad.
If you were going to insult someone's intelligence, please, for the love of God, pronounce the vocabulary words correctly.
I know. I was cringing. And Angela, who has the calmest, most lethal, sociopathic delivery on this entire cast, retaliates. She doesn't raise her voice. She just looks at Shemaya over her wine glass and calls her a lapdog with lipstick.
Which is incredibly, devastatingly accurate. Shemaya has historically, for a decade, been Porsha's literal mouthpiece. She barks when Porsha tells her to bark.
Huh?
And now that Porsha is icing her out, Shemaya is frantically trying to find a new lap to sit in. But the escalation of this dinner goes completely nuclear. Shemaya decides to bring up Angela's husband, Charles. She implies that Charles is, quote, in the streets.
You do not bring up the husbands unless you are ready to die on that hill. And Angela does not miss a single beat. She drops the mother of all reads. She accuses Shemaya of being in those exact same streets with former Hawks and Falcons players before she met her rich husband. And then, the kill shot. Angela looks Shemaya dead in the eye and says, "I never laid on my back to get on my feet."
Boom. Mushroom cloud.
I screamed.
The ultimate slut-shaming financial independence clapback. Angela is completely diminishing Shemaya's entire existence, her marriage, and her lifestyle. She is implying that Shemaya's wealth, the black cards, the mashing aloe sets, everything we discussed earlier, is entirely derived from transactional intimacy with an older, wealthy man. It's brutal. It's dark. It's the kind of read that permanently ends friendships.
I was hyperventilating on my couch, and amidst all of this high-volume screaming about adultery and professional athletes, the poor, innocent waitress keeps coming over to the table.
That poor girl.
She keeps walking up and saying, "Do you guys want to start with some appetizers? Can I get you another round of drinks? Ma'am, we are in the middle of an active homicide investigation. Please step away from the crime scene."
That waitress deserves hazard pay and a GoFundMe. She was just trying to secure an 18% gratuity while dodging rhetorical shrapnel.
Shemaya has finally had enough. She is thoroughly defeated. She grabs her designer bag to storm out of the restaurant. But babes, the climax of the fight, the absolute piece de resistance of delusion. Shemaya stands up, looks under the table, points a perfectly manicured finger at Angela and screams, "And you shouldn't be wearing white shoes after Labor Day," and she turns on her heel and walks out.
I lost my actual mind. I had to pause the television. The absolute unhinged absurdity of the human brain in distress.
I couldn't believe it.
You are arguing about devastating accusations of adultery, fraternizing with professional athletes, and the core legitimacy of your financial independence, and your parting shot, your mic drop moment, is a critique of the seasonal appropriateness of her footwear.
It was pure, unadulterated camp. I was yelling at the TV, "What is wrong with the white shoes, Shemaya?" But let's actually analytically dissect this because this level of rage is completely misdirected.
Absolutely. Think about the broader sociological context of this entire dinner. Every single person at that table was fighting a ghost. Angela is furious because Porsha made a joke on a podcast about sleeping with her husband, Charles. But Angela is terrified to actually go toe-to-toe with Porsha because Porsha is the fan favorite and will destroy her. So who does Angela attack to vent that marital rage? Shemaya, the low-hanging fruit.
Yes, and Shemaya is mad at herself. Shemaya is furious that she gossiped about Porsha to Angela and Drew in the first place, completely ruining her friendship with her BFF.
Okay.
And she can't yell at Porsha to fix it, and she can't yell at her husband Gerald about the crushing pressure of the surrogacy and the male heir. So she takes a decade of pent-up patriarchal rage, compresses it into a diamond, and aims it directly at Angela's size 12 white shoes.
It is a masterclass in psychological projection. The white shoes are just a proxy for Shemaya's total loss of control over her own life. It is fascinating.
Babes, I need a deep breath. I need another sip of sangria. Because it is time for our segments. Let's get into segment 1, Peach Holder of the Week, who absolutely carried this episode on their back and earned the spotlight.
I am going to analytically award it to Danny, Drew's assistant.
Oh, strong choice.
For a subordinate employee to look their boss in the eye on national television during a disciplinary meeting and casually call out her crunchy lace requires a level of bravery and pure delusion that I can only aspire to. He risked his $12 an hour paycheck for a moment of legendary shade, and he secured his place in Bravo history.
I love that, and Danny is an icon, but I have to advocate for the chaotic background waitress. The sheer, unmitigated bravery of walking up to two wealthy women who are actively accusing each other of sleeping with professional athletes just to politely ask if they want to put in an order for the spinach artichoke dip. That is professionalism. That is dedication to the hospitality industry. She is the true hero of Atlanta. Give her a peach.
Fair point. She earned her screen time. Segment 2, the Shadiest Read Award. We had a lot of heavy hitters this week. Phaedra's Sweet Chariot Swing Low was a masterclass in anatomical shade. Porsha calling Kelly a big titty fly was juvenile but effective.
And Shemaya's size 12 shoe comment, followed by the white shoes after Labor Day violation.
But I am formally awarding it to Angela Oakley. I never laid on my back to get on my feet. The delivery was calm, the eye contact was lethal, the posture was relaxed, and the devastation was absolute. It was a surgical strike that effectively ended the debate.
It ended the dinner. It ended Shemaya's ability to speak. Okay, segment 3. Housewives business venture we would absolutely fail at. Inspired by Kelly's bankrupt restaurant and Drew's chaotic 20-person management style, which Bravo business would we completely tank?
If I tried to run a healing waters sound bath facility like Phaedra, it would end in a massive class action lawsuit within 72 hours.
Oh, absolutely.
I am far too analytical and entirely too shady to hold space for people's healing. Instead of facilitating quiet meditation and aligning chakras, I would end up sitting cross-legged on the mat, drinking an iced coffee, gossiping with the clients about their terrible ex-boyfriends. Okay, breathe in. Now tell me exactly what that loser texted you last night. Breathe out.
Yeah.
Block his number. It would be a therapeutic disaster.
I would absolutely fail at running a fashion boutique like Cherie's She by Cherie or Nini's Swag Boutique or Envy, because I wouldn't actually sell anything. I would order the inventory, unpack the boxes, try everything on, realize it looks cute, and just keep all the clothes for myself. I would be my own best and only customer.
You'd never make a sale.
People would come to the door and I'd say, "Sorry, we're completely sold out of the medium in that blouse. I'm literally wearing it to brunch tomorrow."
You would be in Chapter 11 bankruptcy within a month. Your cost of goods sold would be entirely personal wardrobe expenses.
It's true. It's so true. Finally, segment 4, Joan and Felicia's verdict. If our retirement home Snark queens, the undisputed rulers of the bingo hall, watched this episode, what would they say about each cast member?
Joan would have zero sympathy for Kelly's financial woes. Joan grew up in an era of austerity. She would side entirely with the ex-husband. She would point her arthritic finger at the screen and say, "That woman needs to put a sturdy brassiere on, stop buying $70,000 novelty teeth, and go home and watch your children."
She totally would. And Felicia would completely, entirely ignore the massive accusations of adultery. She wouldn't care about the Falcons players or the bankruptcies or the surrogacy trauma. Felicia would be deeply, fundamentally, spiritually offended by Angela's white shoes after Labor Day. She's a traditionalist. She would write a handwritten, cursive letter to the Bravo Network executives demanding that Angela be immediately fired for footwear negligence.
They are nothing if not incredibly consistent in their skewed priorities.
Babes, what an incredibly chaotic conversation. Thank you to the Snark Squad for hanging out, drinking sangria, and spiraling with us today.
We want to hear from you. Head down to the comments and weigh in. Who was your peach holder of the week? What specific bakery item would you let Joan absolutely judge you for eating? Which housewife brought the most unnecessary manufactured drama? And critically, could Joan and Felicia survive a Housewives reunion, or would they make Andy Cohen cry?
Oh, they would absolutely host it. They would take Andy's cards and tell him to sit down. Don't forget, babes, to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your messiest bestie.
And if we connect all of this madness back to the beginning, K. Michelle is terrified someone is going to expose her long toes. But the psychological reality is the X-ray machine of reality television exposes absolutely everything eventually. You can't hide. Whether it's a $70,000 set of veneers masking a terrifying bankruptcy or a pristine white shoe masking a crumbling loveless marriage, the truth always comes out when the cameras roll long enough.
Stay messy, stay beautiful, and babes, we will see you on the Snark side.